This week is the last bit of functioning Mercury you're going to get for a little while. Mercury moves into shadow next week, August 21st. We also have the last few weeks of, or days, of Neptune's first transit of Aries and Uranus's first transit of Gemini, with Neptune moving back into Pisces for a minute, starting next week, and Uranus moving back into Taurus temporarily the first week of November. This week, the moon moves from Cancer at the beginning of the week through Libra at the end of the week, and the moon is waning. So we have a finishing, so finish up things. On Monday, the moon trined Mars in the middle of the night. So maybe you had weird dreams. Maybe the minute you shut your eyes at 11 p.m., you started to see visions. That's a Cancer thing, not a Scorpio thing, but like maybe visions that cut to the core of something. And around 11 a.m. Pacific time, the moon squares the sun. So now we're in the moon's fourth quarter, which is like the cold, dark part of the moon. So not a time for manifesting, more of a time for getting rid of habits you no longer want, getting rid of stuff that no longer serves you, so you can make, like, clearing space for whatever's new to come in, and these like last moments of these large outer planet transits like Neptune and Uranus, Neptune and Pisces, Uranus and Taurus, even Saturn and Pisces. You might start to see, maybe you can clear the space to make room for whatever the final, like the grand finale, the conclusion of these long-term transits is. So that begins officially, the moon's fourth quarter begins officially 11:12 a.m. Pacific time on Monday. But then in kind of like a weird conflicting energy, we have Venus moving into her domicile, a cardinal sign. So you might be wanting to like start something. Just know that the moon doesn't have any energy. This is better for endings. So at least Venus going into Libra, that's more charismatic, more social. And just know that like whatever stuff you need to end, if you need to go into beast mode and like clean your house, whatever it is, you can do it with a smile on your face in a friendly way. We all have like better access to stuff in the Venusian realm, like good times with people, good food. Did you notice during the Venus South Node stuff? I mean, I mentioned it already, but like sometimes the food just wasn't good. And the moon conjoins Jupiter at 4 p.m. on Monday. So all of Monday has that triumphant quality that we like. When the moon is conjoining Jupiter. So Monday is mostly positive, but just know that you might feel like a buildup of energy with Venus moving into Libra, the moon conjoining Jupiter. That happens around a little bit before 5 p.m. Pacific time, so that'll be later in the evening if you're on the East Coast in North America. You have this like positive day, but just know that the energy is starting to drain. Like despite having like something that astrology can show is like, okay, the energy is like going away. But Monday we get an energetic infusion, kind of. And Pluto is also stationing on Monday. So you might find I mean, one thing you could do with that is like whatever you're house cleaning, whatever you're clearing space, make it count. You might even go a little bit overboard. So with Pluto stationing, we're going to have, and this is reverberated through last week as well, and will ripple into next week, or like at least all throughout this week we're talking about now. So Pluto is power struggles, stuff that is hidden within you that you don't want to look at, that you maybe don't even want to acknowledge. Maybe sometimes that's things that other people can, like it's apparent to other people in some contexts about you, but you're not even aware of it. The cliche word associated with Pluto would be transformation, but it's like something that trauma is associated with is great change. And that's the human body likes homeostasis, and our emotional attunement is an emergent property of the body. So any great change, even good, can be traumatic. So clean your house, make it traumatic. I'm kidding, but you get what I'm saying. So Monday really feels like it has quite an exclamation mark on it. We also have Venus's opposition with Uranus going exact, Neptune. Venus's opposition with Neptune going exact on Monday evening. Also, Monday evening, it's like late night if you're on the East Coast of North America, around 10 p.m. if you're on the West Coast. In North America, the moon trines Saturn. Saturn rules the sign that Pluto is stationing in. So there's like the first part of the day, the first part of the day the moon is applying to, for most of the day, the moon is applying to conjunction with Jupiter, and it's the moon in Cancer. And Venus in the afternoon moves into Libra, so we have these two dignified planets wanting to bring good stuff to us. The evening gets a little heavier and a little more disorienting. So this is our first Venus Neptune opposition, with Venus in Libra and Neptune in Aries. And the conjunction was on February 1st, 2025. And the square, which would be like part 2, if we're talking Venus-Neptune axial alignments, the square was on August 1st. So you could track a story like the big chunks, maybe not little individual chapters, but like the big parts, like part 1, part 2, here we go, beginning part 3, and it's like sort of climactic of Venus's year. This is a yearly cycle of Venus and Neptune. Part 3 sort of begins, like ticks over into the second half of the clock face, starting Monday evening. You'll have seen this kind of coming all week, and you'll feel it all this week. So we have like a story that has to do with like something being idealized. And that'll be in the Pisces part of your life, and also in the Neptune, like the Aries part of your life. So we have there's a lot of Venus stuff happening this week. If Venus is your time lord, there are a lot of plot points that there are a couple that are like, oh, we saw that coming, and of course it happens, and yay. Like, it might be kind of a good thing coming up later. I'll talk about that a little later. But this is like, if Venus Neptune is important in your chart or in your year, Monday will be like marks kind of like a climactic period. And it might kind of feel like it happens all at once. Am I really still talking about Monday? So Monday, first part of the day, optimistic. Second part of the day, a little more complicated. The whole day is complicated. Pluto is stationing. But Monday night feels more serious in a constructive way with the moon trining Saturn. And then Tuesday, the moon, you'll wake up in to a completely different tone because the moon is now in Leo. And so on Monday, you will have also seen like the moon is like sort of bringing up the rear in Virgo as Venus changes signs. But Monday, things will feel really different than they have the past couple weeks with Venus in Virgo, the eclipses in Virgo. Now everything's like moved out of Virgo, including the moon. So the other stuff I was talking about with Venus is trining Uranus now that Venus is in Libra, and also trining Pluto. Both those things, the Venus-Uranus trine happens at the beginning of the day. So the day is basically bracketed by like Venus trines Uranus, and then all day long is just the moon applying to a square with Mercury and Venus applying to a trine with Pluto. So this goes back to like, there's a lot of like big like plot points in regards to Venus that have to do with the larger world. So we already touched on Neptune, and this, like the Venus-Neptune opposition of Monday, you could also even say the Venus-Uranus opposition is like Monday is kind of a Venus-Uranus day also, so surprising. Because the Venus-Uranus trine happens at 7 a.m. A lot of stuff happens in the middle of the night on Tuesday, which is another reason why you might feel like you're waking up in a different realm, or like the tone has shifted significantly. With Venus in Libra opposing Neptune in Aries, we might see something about war narratives, the romanticization of war narratives and war aesthetic. Like I was somewhere last week and all these teenagers were wearing military looking stuff, and that's always a trend, but something about like the aesthetics of war or romanticizing the idea of war, of violence being the solution. And Venus in Libra, the diplomat, having really messing with my hair a lot. Venus in Libra, the diplomat, having something to say about that, and maybe like bringing peace to a situation that needs it, or bringing peace to a situation that didn't know it needed it. It's a little bit like, it's not quite like this, but for some reason I think of like in a cartoon when like somebody slaps somebody else, and the person who gets slapped was like, I needed that. But in a cute way, not in a not in a sinister way. How is that ever cute? Okay. So a lot happens on Tuesday. In between, like late night, in between Monday and Tuesday, the moon trines Neptune, so activates that Venus-Neptune situation. The moon sextiles Venus, because Venus is right there with Neptune. The moon sextiles Uranus, activating the Venus-Uranus thing coming up immediately after, and the moon opposes Pluto, activating the Venus-Pluto. So Tuesday is all about this, like, these like big Venus chapters clicking over Venus plot points. On Wednesday, so late Tuesday night is just the moon applying to a square with Mercury. And it's the moon in Leo squaring Mercury in Scorpio. So there's always, with the Leo Scorpio, like the reason why they're situated in square to each other makes a lot of sense if you think about what those signs are about. Leo is about being seen. Scorpio is about staying hidden or investigating things that are hidden. So there's some sort of like collision between wanting to be concealed and being seen. I myself have planets in Scorpio and a planet in Leo, and I struggle sometimes with like where I think I need something I need privacy with. I suddenly have to be observed. The moon also squares Mars on Wednesday morning, so Tuesday night could also be a little more aggro with all the Venus stuff happening, and the moon in Leo squaring Mars in Scorpio. Something about, and Mars in Scorpio has the upper hand here, so something about, like, it makes me think of like a little bit, you know how, did you ever watch I Love Lucy? How she keeps wanting to sneak on stage at Club Babalu, and Ricky Ricardo never lets her. Something like that, but like with more sinister consequences. And then the moon is really waning down. We're entering like the dregs of the light this quarter, with the moon sextiling the sun. And Wednesday, that's all that really goes exact. Okay, I can't remember if I said something wrong earlier in this video, so hopefully I didn't. So Thursday ends up, we get another shift in tone. The moon like really moves through Leo very quickly. And so on Thursday we have the moon in Virgo, which we're kind of going back to the eclipses on, like specifically the South Node Virgo eclipse, the solar eclipse on September 22nd. The moon squares Uranus, so some sort of clash between, I was thinking about Gemini and Virgo and how Gemini is like this and this and that and this and that and what about this and what about that, and Gemini is like kind of like this and that, and even sometimes you're like this or that, but like all the things. Virgo is like this, not that. This, not that. So there's some sort of like collision between those things. Or maybe it's just like wanting to be social versus wanting to be studious. And the sun squares Jupiter on Thursday. This is the sun in Libra squaring Jupiter in Cancer. So the sun in the sign of its fall squaring Jupiter in the sign of its exaltation. Something's like interfering with the exalted Jupiter of it all. So the conjunction, just to get an idea of this story, because we always have like several storylines running at once. The Sun-Jupiter story is a yearly story, and the conjunction was on June 21st. So that's kind of like when a new cycle, old cycle ends, new cycle begins. And the opposition, so the halfway point in this story, which the Sun-Jupiter story is always roughly a year, the halfway point will be January 10th, 2026, when the Sun opposes Jupiter from Capricorn. So we're like, as far as the Sun-Jupiter story, this is the middle of the first half, so the end of the first quarter. And again, Jupiter is going to station retrograde on November 11th. So again, we get like, you could look at the phases, the like little chapters of Jupiter's relationship with the Sun in a couple different ways. If you want to do the axial alignment, so that's conjunction, square, opposition, square, conjunction again, that divides it into 4 parts. But then if you want to look at it in terms of when Jupiter is retrograde and when it isn't, and the variations in like the different versions of like Jupiter being direct, because there are a couple different versions, then we have like the conjunction, then Jupiter stations retrograde, then Jupiter stations, then we have the opposition, then Jupiter stations direct. Then we have another square, then we have a conjunction. So if you want to look at it that way, that first period of like this past June 24th through November 11th, that's Jupiter kind of giving things without, you may not necessarily have to earn them, or you get like things sort of fronted to you. And then when Jupiter stations retrograde November 11th, so just prepare for it now. This part of Jupiter in Cancer being awesome, it'll be more like, okay, well now, you know, it's like how everybody says, like, you have to become the person who has the thing that you want, or the experience that you want for yourself, the changes that you want in your life. You have to become that person. And that'll be what the Jupiter retrograde phase really marks. Like, if you're not taking that, like becoming that person seriously now, be prepared to flip into taking it seriously mode, starting at least November 11th. And that's basically all of Thursday. The moon is in Virgo, the moon squares Uranus, and if you're on the East Coast, the moon doesn't move into Virgo until like afternoon. And then the sun squares Jupiter. So we have these like big chapters. Like, you're starting to be able to see what the recent part of the story has been about, or like what recent chapters have been about. That is this week. And then like, okay, now you're like, okay, I see what all that was about. Get ready for Mercury retrograde, Mercury going into shadow, like I said. So Friday, you'll start out the day with a moon-Mercury conjunction, so like maybe you have an early morning phone call or something, or like something is very chatty. And the moon sextiles Mars at 9 p.m., so pretty simple, chatty, and energetic. This is the moon in Virgo sextiling Mars in Scorpio, so it seems like organized. And the moon in Virgo sextiling also Mercury in Scorpio. So there's something like incisive, and it feels like potentially Friday feels like accurate. Do you need to do something that requires accuracy? Perhaps late Thursday, most of the business day on Friday is your time to get that done. Also Friday night, like late night, we have the moon in Virgo sextiling Jupiter in Cancer. So that seems like, it seems like Friday night seems like it could be pretty pleasant. And Saturday night is a lot. So most of Saturday during the day is the moon applying to an opposition with Saturn, and this is I haven't been able to talk about this for a while because it's a transit that's going away, but how when the moon in Virgo is opposing Saturn in Pisces, which we'll say goodbye to for the next 30 years, starting at the beginning of 2026. When the moon in Virgo is opposing Saturn in Pisces, these planets are, it's like a pretty friendly version, I think, of a moon-Saturn opposition. One of the more constructive ones, I think, in terms of zodiac signs that could be in, because they're kind of trying to do similar things and they can help each other. So it's not like, even though you might have like, it's moon opposite Saturn, maybe that feels depressing, maybe that feels heavy, maybe there's like, obligation, seriousness, sobriety. There can be all those feelings, but I think it's easier to walk away from this moon, so I'm like giving it a lot of weight. It's easier to walk away from this type of moon opposite Saturn thing aspect with the moon in Virgo and Saturn in Pisces. It's easier to walk away from it with something helpful. They're trying to do similar things because, like, okay, the moon's domicile is Cancer. The moon is pretty fluid and watery. The moon does like regular stuff. And this is like the moon in late Virgo, which is, not as life-giving. It's kind of like the Saturnian feeling part of Virgo. I forget the rulers off the top of my head of that part of Virgo. But so the moon is wanting to support life. And it's in this sort of like dry place that's sort of like preparing the trash to be taken out. And Saturn isn't necessarily the guy to take out the trash. That would be Mars. But Saturn doesn't mind like doing a post-mortem on things. And Pisces is like, there is a very biological component to Pisces. Obviously the moon enjoys being in Pisces. It's not the moon's domicile at all, but like the moon does not do bad there. So there's something that kind of like rhymes with like Saturn at the end of Virgo, moon anywhere in Pisces, but the end is fine. The end of Pisces, like both the last 10 degrees of Pisces, in either system you could use, Mars is assigned to that realm, so that's kind of funny. Anyway, there's like a watery place, the planet of structure and concretizing things and being serious and being organized and being patient is opposing the moon in a place that is very conducive to all that stuff, not ruled by Saturn at all, but like works well with those themes. And I lost my train of thought, but you get what I'm saying. I'm kind of going off on this. Anyway, so you get the most constructive Moon-Saturn opposition, and that's basically the whole first part of your day on Saturday. Do you need to like reorganize your drawers or something, to like, for like a silly version of what that could be? You could really get down to business on like, do you want to just have like a power hour where you get something done, try to check as many like dumb, stupid things off your list? Saying this for myself, remind me to watch this. And then the moon moves into Libra. So we get this resonance from Friday when Venus moved into Libra. Then the moon opposes Saturn, just like Venus did. The moon makes all the aspects that Venus ended up making on Monday and Tuesday. So it's the moon opposes Neptune, trines Uranus, trines Pluto, and then conjoins Venus on Sunday morning. And so this will be an activation of the moon's activator of the zodiac. This will be like a reverberation of Monday and Tuesday and an activation of Venus's aspects with those things. And it'll also activate or like bring attention again to the fact that Pluto has just stationed. So all of this week, remember, has a very Plutonian heaviness. Almost annoying. I always find it like, it's almost annoying that like there's stuff going on under the hood. There are planets in Scorpio. Pluto is stationing, squaring those planets by sign. So there's a lot of like undercurrents. It's almost annoying where it's just like, do you ever have that kind of feeling where it's like you can tell something's going on under the hood, or you can tell like somebody's keeping something from you and maybe you understand why they need to keep it from you, but it's just like, you don't need to. I already know about it. Like, especially if you have planets in Scorpio, you're probably like, I already know about it. So, and then like, if you confront them, this is why it's annoying. If you confront them about it, then you're like kind of kicking up dust and like starting conflict maybe, or like wanting to center yourself about it. Maybe that's some of the moon and Leo squaring the Scorpio planet stuff. And if you don't bring it up, then it's just like, okay, we're pretending that we don't know that stuff's going on under the hood. We know perfectly well what it is. So a lot of those themes I think are going on where it's just like, or like, have you ever felt the need to hide something that is like not a big deal to you, but like for social graces purposes? I feel like some of that with like the stuff going on in the sign of Libra too. For social graces purposes, you need to like hide something that like you'd rather not, but it'll just like, it'll make life simpler. My least favorite thing. So yeah, a lot of that, a lot of like aggravating. I don't know why I'm framing it as annoying. If you are living through a story currently where you need things to stay under the hood, they might not with Pluto stationing, so be prepared for that. Be prepared for like, if you're trying to like keep that theme going, some stuff might come out, or like people, you also might need to keep in mind if you're trying to like sustain something like that, that like people could know about stuff like that and just like not tell you. Just because you think you're getting away with something doesn't mean that you are. I don't know why I'm framing this around like getting away with something. I think maybe like because there's the Scorpio stuff in addition to the Pluto stationing stuff, and like Mars would be the planet of crime. Scorpio's kind of got like a cat burglar type of energy. Excuse me. So where was I? Sunday. Saturday night, once we get past, like if you're up late Saturday night, that'll be nice because we have the moon applying to a conjunction with Venus in Libra. How wonderful. So late night Saturday seems pretty fun. Once you get, and that's on the West Coast. If you're on the East Coast, it might just be like too late. Like your late night might be more of that like Pluto Uranus stuff. Still kind of like out there. Could be interesting. I don't know. I don't want to recommend that as heavily as like a moon applying to a conjunction with Venus in Libra night out or a night anywhere. If you're alone, however, you might feel like something's missing. Saturday night on the West Coast. And then Sunday we have an interesting thing happening. Sunday is mostly characterized by, it's just like, so the moon applies, if you're on the West Coast in North America, the moon applies to that conjunction with Venus in the morning, at 11 a.m. in the morning. And for the East Coast in North America, that'll be a little later. So you get kind of like East Coast people maybe won't get the like quite as charming of an evening, but you'll get like a charming most of your day. And on the West Coast, you'll get a charming evening and a charming morning. And the rest of the day is characterized by the Mercury Mars conjunction. And this is the first, so again, like all week, you might experience a buildup of just like something like Mars Mercury, theft, arguments, engineering, programming. Do you need to write some code? Do you need to vibe code something? This week would be great for that. Especially like maybe like Thursday night into Friday morning or Thursday, Friday. It's pretty good for vibe coding. Anyway, so this Mars-Mercury conjunction, again, talking about like how it's annoying that there's stuff going on under the hood. Some of that might explode into like saying things that need to be said. Like, so sometimes there's like avoiding conflict. Venus is in Libra now. Avoiding conflict in a way that like, okay, are you just be careful about putting on a happy face when you're not feeling happy, and then that like kind of overflows into or it like boils over. That's a better way to put it. Anyway, so this Mercury-Mars aspect is one of three, because Mercury is about to go into shadow and then station retrograde in a couple weeks. Excuse me. So we're going to have three Mars-Mercury conjunctions. There's this one, which Mars is dignified. The next one is Mercury-Mars in Sagittarius. So like, I'm a big fan of Mars in Sagittarius, but Mercury in Sagittarius, I'm a big fan of Mercury. So many people I know have Mercury in Sagittarius. I'm a big fan of it. But technically in the astrological system, Mercury is in detriment in Sagittarius. And it's just like, maybe a little all over the place. And so, like Mercury is not dignified in Jupiter's signs. So this second Mercury-Mars conjunction is a little like, I wrote that it is dicey. And then the third one is in Capricorn. That'll be on January 17th, 2026. And it'll be in late Capricorn. So it'll be like kind of like right near Mars's like exact degree of exaltation. So we get exalted Mars again, and Mercury in Capricorn is perfectly good. So this story of like Mars, Mercury in Scorpio, good, like off to a good start. Maybe a little brutal, but off to a good start. And then Sagittarius, where it's like, it's like, this is like the beginning, middle, end of a story almost, of like some kind of hero's journey, with Mars involved, and Mercury involved for that matter. So we get kind of like a happy ending, at least, with like even more dignified Mars. And maybe like the opportunity to establish something enduring, whatever Mars, like what parts in your chart does Mercury rule? What parts of your chart does Mars rule? These two keep coming together, and it's going to be kind of a mess in November. But by January, just know you have the opportunity to have a really constructive ending. And like, whereas Mercury, Mars, and Sagittarius makes me think of like some kind of like Real Housewives, like all over the place battle, like something really loud and reality television and heated. That's the one in November. The one in January makes me feel like it's more of like a strongly worded letter. So yeah, number one of these three aspects happens at 19 degrees of Scorpio on Sunday. And next week we have the dark moon in Libra. And at the beginning of next week, basically first thing on Tuesday, like early Tuesday morning, Mercury moves into shadow. So here we go. Buckle in. Remember, they're trying to replace God.